Ah, here we go again.
Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder saying it's just my opinion, it's for cowards. It's weird to think that 2016 was 10 years ago at this point. In a lot of ways, it feels like it was yesterday, where I can remember all of the controversies in excruciating detail. From Trump first running for president to Gamergate to the SJW and anti-SJW movements. In other ways, it feels like a lifetime ago though. Because we have been living in a time loop where those same exact issues are still happening to this day. People are bringing up Anita Sarkeesian again, of all people. Famous for criticizing video games from a feminist lens, doing a massive fundraising campaign for videos that make mine look like edited masterpieces in comparison, and still not delivering even a quarter of the promised content while pocketing all of the money. And I actually did watch her videos, but I thought she was an absolute moron for comparing Catwoman and Batman's sexualizations in Arkham City. I'm sorry, you're actually doing this for the game where Batman is wearing a skin-tight outfit with rippling muscles, a gigantic bulge, and the most defined male butt outside of Metal Gear. Really?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Yeah, 2016 was the year of anger. Everyone was angry about everything. But back then, I was just a nihilistic little turd who wanted to laugh as the world burned. Fortunately, now I'm a nihilistic little turd who gets depressed as the world burns. Yeah, character development. But if there was anything that defined that year for me, it was Ghostbusters 2016. If there was any movie which defines the raw rage radiating from everyone, it was this film. All for it to amount to a less than mediocre outcome. Yeah, doesn't that sound about right?
Life sucks, and then you die.
For those of you who don't know or don't remember, Ghostbusters 2016 is the all-female Ghostbusters movie. Yes, that is how it was pitched. Reboot the Ghostbusters with an all-female cast. Was there a specific story that needed to be told which required all women? No, not really. Did the fact that they were all women really matter in the end? No, not really. If you flip the sexes of the characters, would anything really change? No, not really. Except for Chris Hemsworth's character. Imagine a female assistant was hired specifically because of her attractive appearance, even though she was terrible at her job and dumber than a sack of rocks. Imagine how that would go over as an all-male cast drool over her.
I've made a huge mistake.
But love of storytelling, you might be thinking. The original Ghostbusters had a female secretary. Yes, Janine was famous for being just eye candy and not being sarcastic to her bosses, who definitely needed to pay her a lot more. And she most definitely was cartoonishly stupid. No, of course not. She was an actual character and probably the most down-to-earth person on the team other than Winston. Those two were simply people down on their luck who needed a job. The Ghostbusters were just a way to make a living for those two people, and there was an implication that they thought that the business wouldn't even last all that long when they joined up. Meanwhile, the male characters did kind of need to be men in the original. Peter's almost sleazy yet charismatic way with words, ambition, and attitude wouldn't translate well for one of the female characters from that time period. Ray and Egon as the overly enthusiastic and socially awkward nerd scientists and what was a theoretical form of science would have seemed odd in the 1980s for female characters. Plus, I can't think of a lot of women, even the ones who are desperate for work, that would sign up like Winston did for a physically demanding job, which almost seems laughable. And once again, this was in the 1980s, where culture was far different from the late 2010s, let alone the 2020s. From a writing perspective, you would have to completely rewrite characters and their dynamics to make it work back then. Well, maybe Ray could have worked with some minor differences, but that's about it. And even then, you actually would have to change a lot now that I think about it.
I'm just saying.
The original Ghostbusters is basically a story of a bunch of dudes getting sacked from their old jobs and starting an absurd small business in an unproven market. The original setup could have been for tech that we take for granted today, but was revolutionary back then, while taking out the paranormal stuff, and it actually would have translated very well as a script. There obviously wasn't a whole lot of thought actively put in to keep women out of the project and make it a boys' club. It was just a story that made the most sense. And in this way, if you think about it, Ghostbusters 2016 is far more sexist by actively taking that into account while creating the film.
Hans, are we the baddies?
Just kidding, but the entire premise was just some normal slubs starting an absurd business and getting sucked into forces that they never really signed up for. It was a perfect storm of writing, acting, and directing. All at the perfect time with the perfect setting of New York to make it work. The original Ghostbusters is lightning in a bottle, which could never be replicated to be as good, as shown with the second best story in the franchise. Ghostbusters 2, while not a terrible film, it is obviously far from the original greatness of the original, and that leads to the problem with Ghostbusters 2016. While the original was a perfect storm of excellence, the remake was a perfect storm of failure, starting with I would actually blame The Force Awakens for the wave of nostalgia bait that we have been subjected to for over the past decade. That financial success led to remake after remake after remake, reboot after reboot after reboot, unnecessary sequel after unnecessary sequel after unnecessary sequel. But even as it was being filmed and marketed, every executive in Hollywood realized how much money The Force Awakens was going to make. So they looked at the IPs that they owned and thought, which one of these names is popular enough that we could get enough attention that we might be able to have our own Star Wars in some way? And Sony looked at Ghostbusters and then started to laugh maniacally into the air because apparently Sony has always been evil.
It's my IP to sit on and do nothing with.
Thus, the corpos had a choice to make. Do they make an unnecessary sequel where they pass the torch, or do they do an unnecessary reboot instead? And they chose poorly, because despite how much I think that Afterlife and Frozen Empire are pointless sequels which add nothing for anyone really, they at least made money or broke even respectively. Ghostbusters 2016 did not. And one, that's because no one on the planet wanted any sort of remake of the original movie at all. There was no demand for that to begin with. The original is so perfect and holds up so well that remaking it is like shooting yourself in the foot.
This is worthless.
It's less than worthless, my boy.
So it was always doomed to fail. In fact, if they did not dupe an all-female cast, it probably would have made the exact amount of money. In fact, they would have probably made a little bit less depending on the casting involved. If they did a mixture of male and female characters, it would have made a bit less because there wouldn't have been any sort of controversy to gather up any sort of attention. But if they made it an all-male cast, it probably would have made the exact same amount, if I'm being honest, where some people would have complained about it being sexist for excluding women, and some people would have supported it because it did in fact exclude women. And yes, you have guessed correctly, I am not exactly fond of stupid people on the internet making absurd claims.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
So the entire idea was doomed from the start. It was a remake no one wanted. In a way, Ghostbusters 2016 was the exact opposite of the original. It was the wrong story at the wrong time with the wrong people. And it also had the worst possible controversy, because that leads into the second problem.
What the hell is even that?
While there was a bit of chatter about the all-female cast when it was first announced, there wasn't a whole lot of buzz around the film. Of course, it's the internet. So there were terrible misogynistic comments. I'm not saying that there wasn't, but in all honesty, no one really cared about the movie at first. Everyone assumed that it would be generic corpo slop, but the real waves of attention and controversy didn't start until the first trailer dropped.
Here we
Go.
Oh boy, you can go and watch the trailer yourself to see that I am not exaggerating when I say that it was completely and utterly awful. The effects looked terrible, the humor was unfunny, the acting was stiff, the shots looked boring, the nostalgia bait was pathetic. It was objectively bad, and people made sure that it was known through dislikes and comments. And now, yes, there were disgusting things said about the actresses. Leslie Jones specifically, and that was deplorable, but the vast majority of what people were saying was just the obvious fact that the trailer was outright awful.
Well, this sucks.
But the fire had been started. The reaction was immediate, with articles and interviews coming out to condemn the hateful, disgusting comments. And this was in fact deserved. Sony deleted most of them, but I remember reading them and they sucked. But there was also a problem. The legitimate criticism from the vast majority of normal people who simply thought the trailer looked bad was lumped in with the people who were saying the worst things imaginable. And once again, I condemn that. But all possible criticism was lumped in with someone comparing, and for the millionth time, I hate this and condemn it, Leslie Jones to a primate.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
There was an overwhelming response that if you did not like the trailer or the movie, then you just hate women, which is an absurd thing to say, because the trailer was absolutely horrendous, irredeemably bad. Saying that it didn't look funny wasn't misogynistic, but the narrative was already spun, and then began the famous last words. This movie isn't for you. Don't like it, don't watch it. Which is an absolutely famous saying for all movies which inevitably bomb, for movies which are actually decent like Furiosa, to films that sucked like Terminator Dark Fate. It even happened again with Supergirl recently. This is a tactic which has failed at every single possible turn.
That was the plan.
Not a great plan.
Because that leads to the actual result. While there were people who went to see the film, it wasn't enough. Because even the best reviews possible from people that I trusted back then said that it was, at best, mediocre, and those were the kindest reviews that I saw. Most said that it was outright bad, thus poor marketing led to a weak opening weekend, which drastically shrunk to the point of not even breaking even. Meaning, if you take a movie's budget, double it for the cost of advertising and the cut that the theaters take, then it doesn't make any money. And that leads into the third point.
It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
And you know what? It's not the actress's fault. In all honesty, this isn't even girl power / men are evil levels of obnoxious. The real problem lies in a man. The writer and director of the film, Paul Feig, who is famous for Bridesmaids, which is fine for what it is. Look, I watched it with my wife once to make her happy. But the overall problem with the writing is that there is no writing. What do I mean by this? Well, the four main characters of Abby, Aaron, Patty, and Holtz are just the actresses playing themselves because they were given absolutely no direction other than to be funny.
I can explain.
Okay, if you want to understand the exact problem with this film, I can sum it up with a single image. Yep. This is Paul Feig forcing all four actresses to step upon him. Writer's poorly disguised fetish, much, anyone? And that is the whole movie. For the most part, Feig took the beats of the original, cartoonized them, and made an outline, and then told the actresses to go out there and be themselves, while also being characters with specific motivations and backgrounds having to follow an outline of an already established story. And if you think that there's almost absolutely no way that this could possibly work, then you would be completely correct.
He's out of line, but he's right.
The four actresses are just riffing off each other like this is improv, and I love a good improv show, but a movie needs an organized structure. Dialogue needs to be calculated and thought out thoroughly. No one ever shuts up in this film, and they're making unfunny quip after unfunny quip which barely have anything to do with what's happening currently in the scene. Because there's a problem with movies and shows with, the various scenes not always being shot shot in order, along with multiple different takes, making everything feel extremely incoherent and disjointed. These characters feel drastically inconsistent. It also doesn't help that the jokes, which were actually written by Feig, match the quality of toilet humor. Not to mention that they brought in Bill Murray for some reason just to kill him off immediately. It was not good.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
In fact, the only memorable characters are the male ones, even if they are basically cartoon characters of a meathead and an incel. And this happened before incel was actually even a term, so there is that. Add in bad effects, terrible action, and an obvious lack of enthusiasm, and Ghostbusters 2016 is a bad film, mostly because Feig himself sabotaged it. And because the movie was bad with few redeeming qualities, people who didn't even know about the controversy decided to skip it through word of mouth alone, leading to a remake which cost 4 times the original, making only 2/3 of what the original actually made.
Failure! Failure! You're still a failure!
And it was so much of a failure that Sony outright decided to drop this alternate universe timeline and instead do direct sequels to the original films, which were just played mediocre and unmemorable as sequels go. While Afterlife did make some money, Frozen Empire basically broke even, causing Ghostbusters to basically be shelved indefinitely, thus creating Ghostbusters 2016's final issue.
If anyone goes asking around about the events of the last few days, what do we say?
Never mind all that!
Female Ghostbusters Legacy is basically 2016's legacy, reaching all the way to today, where everyone is playing fed up with everything, the same mistakes are being made over and over again, and nothing of value was really added. This might sound bad, but people just really don't care anymore when a female character is brought in to replace a male character. Sorry, not sorry, you just have to look at the facts. Even if the films were good, like Furiosa or Ballerina from the John Wick universe, the box office proves that people really don't want to see it. They want to see the original characters again. And look, I'm just looking at the facts. As someone that did like those films, they were pretty good, but people just want the original characters back, and outright screaming that the film failed financially because men hate women leads to disaster after disaster in terms of finances. As I said earlier, we're still seeing this today with Supergirl.
It's time to stop!
Because action movies led by female characters actually do pretty well if it's a new idea or an already established female character. Lucy, Atomic Blonde, Alita Battle Angel, Prey, and Wonder Woman come to mind. The only qualifications that they need to meet are that the marketing needs to be good and the film needs to be good. And while none of the movies I mentioned are perfect, they are in fact good. There's a market for female-led action stories. Maybe not a massive one, but there is one which simply demands quality. It's why something like Ghost in the Shell, a live-action adaptation of the anime and manga, did poorly. Because the writing sucked. Seriously, Hollywood simply can't utilize anime concepts well. And trust me, I will have the same exact attitude when live-action Persona comes out and disappoints me greatly.
Oh, I made myself sad.
10 years later, and Ghostbusters 2016 is still terrible. It's not a hidden gem, it's not a mistake, it was a bad film which was poorly marketed and had too many people running defense on the fringest of the fringe on the internet, lumping everyone in with the trolls. The lasting legacy of the film should be a lesson for everyone to learn about marketing, about writing characters, and about what audience actually want to see. But like everything else from 2016, everyone refuses to learn the lessons of simply creating new female characters in its own thing, adapting already established female characters, and making a genuine good story that everyone can enjoy. For the love of God, K-pop Demon Hunters is a movie which exists and is one of the most popular concepts that we've seen in years, and Sony, the people behind Ghostbusters 2016, passed on it and gave it to Netflix. I swear to God, nothing is ever learned ever.
How does it feel to have lived long enough to see all of your favorite franchises go down in flames?
I mean, just look at K-pop Demon Hunters. It's an all-female group where a male character is in the support role. All the while, it's tackling issues from a female perspective while having amazing visuals, music, dialogue, humor, and acting. Who could have thought that this would have worked besides, you know, everyone? Just do that. Do K-pop Demon Hunters. Please, for the love of God, everyone is literally begging for it. But what do you think? Did you ever see Ghostbusters 2016? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you completely disagree with me? Did you think it was amazing and you quote it all the time? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, if you disagree with everything I have to say, that is perfectly fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion.
I have done nothing wrong, ever, in my life.
Thank you all so much for watching.
You're still here?
Good night, everybody. Thank you. You bye. Boom.
Do not despair.